Okay. I've been having some live stream problems today, so apologies if this ends up coming down again. Thanks to my buddy who keeps reminding me that either my volume wasn't working or I was losing my video there. So I'm going to be a little bit quicker than I planned here. We just broke 60K in the Bitcoin price again, and it's consolidating above 60 now, just a little bit above, but we're seeing some consolidation. And what I mean by that is since breaking 60, which was a very aggressive move up, we've seen it pretty much just staying right around that mark. It's staying above the 60, but not very much above it. It's currently at 6116 as I look at it right this minute. And it's a pretty tight consolidation as well. And I think there's a few considerations here to be thinking about. Typically, when we see assets have a breakout like we just did, where we surpass a resistance level like 60K, it's also really important to understand that big moves can happen after that. Consolidation is definitely pretty normal when we see a big move or a breakout, but post-consolidation, things can happen and be very quick and very wild. I think what makes Bitcoin and crypto so different in this case is it's a little bit more unpredictable, and we treat it sort of differently. Oftentimes, if I see a large breakout to the upside, with an equity, for example, I would say, hey, be prepared to put in a stop loss or some sort of downside protection to make sure you're hedging that bet. I definitely have some trepidation in how I approach that with Bitcoin. Number one, if you're holding it in a wallet, certainly you're not making that effort in the first place. If you're holding it on a marketplace, for example, that's an entirely different thing where you're not up against that same kind of issue, but you certainly might be. I just want to throw out a big thank you, by the way, to Income Stock Investing. Dude, thank you very much for telling me. That was 3 times I had to get this thing up and running again. Really, really appreciate it. I think what we really want to call out is for people who are newer to the world of crypto, weren't involved in the early days, especially in the 16, 17 frame, things can get wild really quick. So my suggestion is just be aware of what happens after consolidation. Breaking 60K is huge. And of course, by the description, this thing could go wild. We could go to the moon. This could go to 100. It could go back down to 20 or 30 or 10. Who knows? So just make sure you're doing some homework here and you understand what's driving this price. A couple of things I'd point out that are a little bit different than what I saw in 2016 and 2017, and even a little bit before that when I was mining. What we're hearing on the media nowadays and the way we're sort of treating it is quite a bit different from the perspective of the general consensus of the people who are talking about it. In 2017, I felt like every 10 seconds there was another story coming out, but it was always very much based on negative attention. It can't go up. It's a scam. There's no value. It's never going to go anywhere. Now, all that being said, there's still some of that out there today, but there does seem to be a much more balanced approach to it from the media's perspective. So I think that the way retail traders and the public in general are looking at this is it's not so much a question of YOLO or FOMO or some other silliness. It's really more a question of, well, what happens if I don't have a balanced portfolio and I don't have some Bitcoin or some exposure to a basket of crypto? And a lot of friends of mine who are CFPs and financial advisors in general are definitely starting to have conversations where they want to understand how to better integrate a little bit of crypto as a speculation hold into a balanced portfolio, very much the same way they approach gold. I think we're also seeing just, I don't want to say mass adoption, but certainly adoption from a corporate perspective where both banks, investment and otherwise, as well as a lot of publicly traded companies are now putting some Bitcoin in their balance sheets just as a way of holding other assets, just as a way of making sure they have some upside protection there. I'll really reiterate this again. I think that this time around things feel different. It doesn't mean that we can't crash down 90%. Sure, it's definitely likely. But what I will say is we didn't have this in 17. When we were breaking highs and breaking highs and breaking highs again, it was very much driven by massive underlying retail traders. This for sure seems a heck of a lot different to me. And even the names that are buying it and getting behind it are getting interesting. We're hearing major investment banks starting to talk to how they would actually integrate this, how they would put it into their holdings, how to build a portfolio around it. So, I approach this with risk as I do with all trading in general. And I also advise everyone speak to a licensed professional before you do anything if you're not sure. But, I just think for me personally, coming at this only from my own angle and my own opinions is I would be a bit remiss if I didn't have some exposure. I think that you have to make sure that it fits well into your portfolio and you're prepared to deal with that. But what we're seeing in the way that cryptos are trading is starting to feel more and more like the experience you have in an equity market. I'm just looking at the price again here, and it's moved a couple of bucks, really, 61.41. But now we've been in pretty much what I would call a consolidation since about 10:30 this morning. It's now 1:30. So 3 hours sitting right around that 6,100 mark or so. That's sort of the way regular technical analysis works. That's starting to feel like an equity to me. That's starting to feel like some expectations can be built here. I'm definitely not one of those guys who's going to say this thing's going to 200 or a million or 500. I have no idea. This isn't a specialty of mine. But I just want to throw this out there quickly. I normally do a video on Saturdays, but I figured, hey, what the heck? It's first time going live, so I'll give it a whirl. And I appreciate anyone who watches this, but especially, again, income stock investing on the right in the chat. I really appreciate it, man. And great channel that I would suggest people check out. So I'm going to cut it there and keep it short. Hopefully if you watch this, you get some value out of it, but definitely if you don't know what consolidation means and you don't know what happens after it, do some research and come back with questions. And I would be happy to go deep on that topic, but definitely start to understand that we're starting to follow patterns that are getting a bit more predictable, a bit more able to be understood. It follows the guidelines of what we would typically see in these situations. So I'll leave it at that. Have a good Saturday. Good luck. Who knows? Maybe this thing's going to the moon. We got to get our space suits ready. So thanks a lot for watching.